Well, let's get what's really going on with you and Dixie here. This is maybe my favorite topic to talk about when we discuss TNA, your relationship with Dixie. We've really just scratched the surface on it, but it comes out in the Observer that you guys were not even on speaking terms at the pay-per-view or at the tapings the next day. Apparently, it was said to be very obvious to wrestlers and agents that you guys weren't talking at all. And there's speculation in the Observer as to what that could be about. Now, to just give proper context, this is 2008. So, this is when Ric Flair goes into the WWE Hall of Fame. And that happens in Florida, in Orlando, in your backyard. So, you guys had these strict orders: do not go to the Hall of Fame, even though you've been invited by people, blah, blah, blah. Don't go. And then Dixie goes to the Ring of Honor show. And Meltzer speculates that you may have felt like that was a bad look for you guys to tell talent, don't go to WWE. And then she goes to the Ring of Honor show. And there's another piece of speculation that says that, quote, it was no secret Jeff was against re-signing Sting to his big money deal. It's purely speculation, but maybe Jeff pointed out to Dixie that the Stinger had bombed in the ratings while appearing in the main event slot in each of the last 4 weeks. So what was the issue? Was it about you being upset that she went to the Ring of Honor show, her being upset that you didn't want her to re-sign Sting under those financial terms, or something else completely?
So I racked my brain on this one, Conrad, trying to do my very best to recall. As far as the Hall of Fame deal, I never had a hard stance on like don't go, but I would think to myself and ask, that is a WWE show. Why do you want to go to a WWE show? And I get the Hall of Fame is a little different, but why do you want to go to that show? And if you do, okay, but I don't know, little bit of its subjective thought. What's the upside is kind of what I'd ask. As far as Dixie going to the Ring of Honor show, I feel certain I would have encouraged that for her to wrap her head around, not just because, look, Dixie's exposure to wrestling started at the Huntsville show and then the Nashville Municipal Auditorium shows and then the Asylum. That was her exposure. And her point of context, with it just being that, she hadn't been to hundreds of WWF live events or WCW or the territories or whatever it may be. It's very healthy for her to go and be exposed to it. I actually think that goes to any talent out there or almost any wrestling fan. We've talked about, house rule shows. It's a different experience. And when you watch it on TV on Wednesdays or Fridays or Mondays or Friday, whatever, watching TV, wrestling on TV and being there, it's entirely two different things. Going to a television taping or pay-per-view or a house rules or a house show, different experience. So Dixie going and being exposed to a Ring of Honor show, I feel certain I would have said, I think she's going to kind of get a real good taste because our production values were always, I can't say always, but much higher. It was, so let her get some context on that because she sees the WWE on TV and maybe had seen film of WCW and then looked at ours and she kind of understood the budget, but then like, well, why can't ours look like that? Well, we're in a studio. It's a different than an arena. Go to a Ring of Honor show and get a taste of that. Anyway, so I would have been for that. So that rules out, all right, if me and Dixie aren't talking, I'm not denying that because it's been well documented, our ups and downs and everything in between. During this time, if I had to kind of land, Conrad, on why would we have kind of been at each other's odds, it would be at the very, very core of it. Her, and I get it, and especially she's the finance, head finance, the investor's, daughter, and yes, with the position, but her going and asking all these questions behind my back, I don't have a problem with that. But form an opinion without coming and at least discussing with me or me and Dutch or me, Dutch and Vince or whatever it may be, it always created the mistrust. and it festered and it festered and it festered. And so my gut tells me something along those lines that it had to do with creative.
Well, the other thing that's speculated is that she would come up with ideas for creative and give it to someone else, ask them to present it, and say, now don't tell Jeff this was my idea. Maybe she thought you were predisposed to not liking her ideas because you didn't think she had enough time in the business or what have you. And then the other piece is that she was trying to play both sides against the middle. She would bring talent into an office and say, now listen, I got you a raise, but don't mention around Jeff. He didn't want to give you this raise. So it's very divisive. You know, you're supposed to have a united front in management. Maybe we disagree in this room, but when we walk out that door, we're together. You know, these are our marching orders. That's the way it's normally done. This is not a healthy business relationship, to say the least. Fair to say?
That would be an understatement. That would be, and just so challenging. Look, and we've talked about this now in 2023 and started really looking at this hard in 2018 and on. What's my role in all this? Without question, I'm guilty of 1,000 things. But when I look on the other side of it, it's just like, how in the hell can you have any kind of sanity when it's not? It's the president of the company. It was a mess. It was such a mess, and it would ebb and flow. And I'm not saying it was all day, every day, but things would fester up because the bigger the event, a lockdown or a pay-per-view or whatever it is, the more problems, the talent would go, more lobbying. And look, talent's guilty of that. Is talent knew the playbook. I mean, they knew the playbook by 08, 09. Hey, if I don't like the answer Jeff gives me, I'm going to go to Dixie. If I don't get the answer Dixie likes me, I'm kind of probably going to go recruit, and I'll get my case back to Dixie, and then get it back. You know, it's a mess. And you know,
so they were hitting you with the ask your father, like little kids would do. Mom says no, so I go ask dad. Same thing.
Over and here was, so think this through. If Dixie's telling talent, yeah, now don't tell Jeff, but fill in the blank.
Yeah.
What do you think talent's coming to me telling me?
Hey, Dixie told me not to tell you, but
I mean, Conrad, I wish I had a buck for every time that happened. Or, hey, Jeff, can I tell you something in confidence?
Hey, you and I do that to each other all the time. Because the deal is, it's like, hey, if we're in business together, we're in business together. So when people are like, hey, don't tell your business partner, it's like, really? That's a strategy? I'm going to work against myself? I'm not going to do that.
It's a head scratcher. But
the
preface of that, and here was what was so disheartening. If you've got 40 pieces of talent, I know by design, when they come to TV, about 50% of them are not going to be happy. It's just the nature of the business. Why? Well, you kind of got to have 50% win or favorable and 50% lose. And the ones that are not favorable, they're going to go to work. So, you know, collectively in dealing with talent, okay, this is what I signed up for. Let's kind of, you know, work our way through this. But when you have a partner, Conrad, it makes it impossible. I mean, impossible.
I love talking about y'all's relationship. And
well, I don't know. No, I'm kidding.